Welcome to Competition Guru. Today I am going to discuss a very major or broad intellectual movement of the 20th century, or you can say 21st century. And the name of that movement is postmodernism. I am going to give you an overview of it, the writing styles, the writing techniques, and little bit about the history of this particular movement. जो आपका मॉडर्निज्म सबसे पहले स्टार्ट हुआ था वो पहले वर्ल्ड वॉर के 1914 से 1942 1918. At that moment we saw that there are many theories, many writing styles. One of them is or was stream of consciousness, famous by major novelists like Virginia Woolf and James Joyce. In simple terms, the postmodernism is start after the Second World War. So here we are going to learn about the impact of the Second World War on the postmodernism. So postmodernists attempted to express the deep paranoia and sense of meaninglessness that they felt as a result of the Second World War. Second World War में हम देखेंगे कि जो लोगों की लाइफ है वो क्या हो जाती है, meaningless. As you can see some traces of it in absurd theatre. Absurd theatre में आप इसके traces देख सकते हैं. One of the most prominent writers of absurd theatres are like Samuel Beckett, Jean Genet, और अगर आप और एग्जाम्पल लेना चाहो इंडियन कॉन्टेक्स्ट में तो बादल सरकार. The term postmodern literature is used to describe works of literature that were produced after World War II. Or we can say that the World War II is started from 1942 to 1945. So after 1945, it is the commencement of the postmodernism era or the postmodernist era. तो इस postmodern era का मेन ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या था? इससे पहले भी आप देख सकते हैं मॉडर्निज्म तक आते आते अभी भी लोगों में वो सेट्स ऑफ बिलीफ थे, लाइफ उनके लिए वैसे ही चल रही थी. बट व्हाट हैपेंड आफ्टर द सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर? You can see that there is the invention of atomic weapons. Nuclear war start हुई और gruesome example हम दे सकते हैं हिरोशिमा और नागासाकी का. दो most prominent cities of Japan. America came into power. So the main objective of postmodern literature is to break away from conventional traditions through experimentation with new literary devices, forms, genres, styles, and historical events. So, यहाँ पे new forms, new genres, new styles, and नए historical events आए. Because I believe that words and letter do not change of their own. There is something behind it. So here, the Second World War is behind it, behind the postmodern era. So what is the major role of Second World War? A reaction against modernism. So postmodernism is a kind of reaction against modernism, especially against the distinction between high art and everyday life. High art and everyday life. That is why postmodernists appeal to popular culture. Cartoons, musics, pop art and television have thus become acceptable for postmodern artistic expressions. सो आप देख सकते हैं जैसे भी नए राइटिंग स्टाइल्स आते हैं, तो नए राइटिंग स्टाइल्स, नई टेक्निक्स, नई थिंकिंग, नए नोशंस लोगों की सोच भी बदल देते हैं. सो आप ये सब कुछ देख सकते हैं कल्चर में, इवन दो म्यूजिक में भी, बिकॉज म्यूजिक इज पार्ट ऑफ अ कल्चर. पॉप आर्ट में, टेलीविजन में वही दिखाया जाता है. ये सब क्या थे? ये थे पोस्ट मॉडर्निस्ट आर्टिस्टिक एक्सप्रेशन और अ रिएक्शन अगेंस्ट अ टोटली न्यू वर्ल्ड आफ्टर World War II. As I mentioned in my previous lecture in modernism, that there are many prominent writers or thinkers, you could say. One of them is Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche, and his famous theory, the death of the God, the existence of the God. These kind of new styles, new writings, उस टाइम में ये बहुत controversial थी. बिकॉज लोग उससे पहले किसी डिवाइन फोर्स पे बिलीव करते थे, उनका बिलीव सिस्टम यही था. बट इन वर्ल्ड वॉर, आफ्टर वर्ल्ड वॉर सेकेंड, दीज थिंग्स डिनाइड ऑल द थिंग्स. और इससे पहले आप चार्ल्स डार्विन की बात कर सकते हो, हिज फेमस बुक ओरिजिन ऑफ स्पीसीज, जिसकी मैंने पहले ही बात की है. गैलीलियो को भी आप इसमें मेंशन कर सकते हो. सो it implies a reaction to significant post-war events. Significant post-war events की जब हम बात करेंगे तो हम बात करेंगे the nuclear bombing and the massacre of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The beginning of the Cold War, yet another major movement. The civil rights movement, another major movement in the United States. After the Second World War, United States came into power because of invention of the atomic weapons. Post-colonialism is another concept, and globalization. Also a reaction against capitalism, technology, and information. According to many scholars or many thinkers, this age is also called the age of technology, because everywhere you can see we are surrounded by technology. If you are talking about mobile phones लेके हर कोई चीज तक आपके surrounding में technology है. Both modernism and postmodernism refers to philosophies of life which evolved due to economic and technological changes in the world. Economic and technological changes in the world. Technology में काफी change आया postmodern era में. Okay. For instance, the invention of internet, the invention of computer. There are so many things also. There is a loss of confidence. Loss of confidence in the new world, or after the Second World War. The West continuously relied on Christian morals, but religion failed to deliver it. As the same theory, if you want to talk about other writers or thinkers like Martin Heidegger, Jean-Paul Sartre, they all talk about our human existence. And Nietzsche himself gives the concept that human being is always responsible for his deeds. And he gave the concept of Übermensch, as I discussed it earlier, that overman or superhuman. If you want to survive in this world, you have to become a superhuman or overman. So before that, people think that there is a God. But it denied all the postulates, even though it also attacks on the church, on the Christian morals that religion failed to deliver. Next, introduction. The first use of the term postmodernism was made in 1947 by Charles Jenks with regard to architecture. According to Cudden, the term postmodernism is used to refer to changes, development, and tendencies which have taken place and are taking place in literature, music, architecture, and philosophy, etc. There are many changes in numerous fields, in numerous disciplines, as you can see it. Literature, music, architecture, philosophy, there is a new approach that how a human going to see the next world or the upcoming world. अब हम बात करेंगे जैसे मॉडर्निज्म में स्ट्रीम ऑफ कॉन्शियसनेस जैसी टर्म्स काफी फेमस हुई. यहां पे अब हम बात करेंगे पोस्ट मॉडर्न की राइटिंग स्टाइल्स की. वो राइटिंग स्टाइल्स कैसे थे, उनका लिखने का नजरिया कैसे चेंज हुआ, क्या क्या नए नए स्टाइल्स आए. उसमें से एक स्टाइल है आपका पेस्टीज. तो आइए चलिए पढ़ते हैं कि पेस्टीज होता क्या है. A literary, artistic, musical or architectural work that imitates the style of previous work. If you talk about Jean Baudrillard, so his concept of hyper reality, we are going to discuss it further, but this concept is also very prominent concept if you talk about postmodernism. Okay, so prestige does not ridicule or mock. It does not ridicule or mock the original work. It functions more as a celebration and homage. It does not ridicule or mock. Like parody. Parodies, always try to mock a famous epic or famous poem or famous work. But it's not like parody, but it is a kind of a homage or a kind of celebration to a particular major work. This is prestige. That's why this separates prestige from parody. So here is the example of a play. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Yet another major writer of postmodern era, playwright, Tom Stoppard. This particular work is inspired by William Shakespeare's work Hamlet. और ये जो दो करेक्टर हैं ये बहुत माइनर करेक्टर थे उस प्ले में, रोजनक्रैंट्स एंड गिल्डस्टर्न. तो उस वर्क की हैमलेट की ये इमिटेशन है. तो दो करेक्टर जो माइनर करेक्टर उठाए हैं उन्होंने टॉम स्टूपर्ड ने, तो ये किस चीज को दिखाता है, ये राइटिंग स्टाइल को दर्शाता है आपके प्रेस्टीज को. और यहां पे कोई रिडिक्यूल नहीं कर रहा है, कोई मोकरी नहीं कर रहा है, बस सेलिब्रेशन और एक होमेज दे रहा है विलियम शेक्सपियर के वर्क को जिसका क्या नाम है, हैमलेट. सो दिस इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट राइटिंग स्टाइल ऑफ पोस्ट मॉडर्न एरा. The next one is the most important, another most important or the most prominent, you could say, writing style. magic realism. It's not that kind of magic, but first of all, we have to talk about its introduction, that it was coined by German art critic Franz Roh. Franz Roh in 1925 to describe certain paintings. He was a painter, I think. The genre is most closely associated with Latin American literature, particularly in the 1960s. And in simple words, you could say that it is a mixture of fantasy and reality. It is a mixture of fantasy and reality. There is a work, 100 Years of Solitude. 100 Years of Solitude, written in or published in 1967 by none other than Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Another postmodern novelist, one of the finest, you could say, or one of the greatest, if you want to add something. He's regarded as the harbinger of that particular style, magic realism. Most of his works, most of his novels deal with that particular thing, magic realism. You can't talk about magical realism without talking about Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Yes, the same thing I discussed, that you can't talk about magic realism without talking about Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And his very famous work and his very famous novel 100 Years of Solitude is not just one of the finest example of the genre, it's one of the greatest works of literature in this period. Gabriel Garcia Marquez. That person particularly belonged to this genre, magic realism, or he is the harbinger of this particular genre. Next. So here is yet another writing style, and the name of it is intertextuality. Intertextuality. It is a kind of a relationship between a text or between the text. Intertextuality is a relationship between the texts, books, movies and songs. Texts, books, movies and song, etc. Kristeva is known for this major contribution for intertextuality, and she also inspired from Mikhail Bakhtin the term, his very famous concept, dialogism. Okay, and if you want to take another example, then she also inspired from Ferdinand de Saussure's major concept, semiology. There are two concepts, semiology and dialogism. Dialogism is talking about all the time that it's talk about multiplicity of voices. There are so many voices. There is no complete authoritative voice. There is no single authoritative voice, but multiplicity of voices means multiple voices that define or elaborate a set of cultures or a set of beliefs. In simple terms. And when we talk about semiology, as I discussed in my structuralism lecture, that semiology is the study of science. The study of science, or the science of science. So Kristiva's concept of intertextuality explored in her essay Word, Dialogue and Noble. Kristiva's concept of intertextuality explored in her essay Word, Dialogue and Noble. It views text as a mosaic of quotations. You know, when a writer takes inspiration from so many texts, inspired by many texts, that's why a mosaic of quotations. And emphasizes the idea that any text is the absorption and transformation of other text. Absorption or what? Transformation of other text. So the full name of Kristiva is Julia Kristeva. Julia Kristiva's work on intertextuality builds upon the ideas of Ferdinand de Saussure's semiotics, or you can say semiology, and Mikhail Bakhtin's concept dialogism, multiple voices. Here is yet another term or yet another famous writing style of postmodern era, temporal distortion. What is temporal distortion? A story that doesn't follow a chronological order. A story that doesn't follow a chronological order. Some classic novels incorporate temporal distortion, including Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five, another major novelist from postmodern era, Kurt Vonnegut, Slaughterhouse-Five. And Joseph Heller's Catch-22, both of which were novels that grew out of their authors' experience in World War II. World War II. A story that doesn't follow a chronological order. And here is another term, and the name of it, metafiction. Metafiction is a self-conscious literary style in which the narrator or characters are aware that they are part of a work of fiction, why breaking the fourth wall. Breaking the fourth wall. Metafiction is a self-conscious literary style in which the narrator or characters are aware that they are part of a work of fiction. It means breaking the fourth wall. Means when a character interacts directly with the audience, as if they are aware that they are being watched or read. It means that I am performing on the stage and suddenly I am going to ask someone in the audience, हाँ जी क्या हुआ? ये ठीक है? By breaking the fourth wall. By breaking the fourth wall. When someone, a hero is going to interact with audience or someone else in the audience, So this is your metafiction. So as we can see that there are new major writing styles of the postmodern era. If you talk about metafiction, and after that we can see temporal distortion, intertextuality, magic realism is also used by major writers like Salman Rushdie, Chitra Devakaruni. So this is a kind of overview on a postmodernism, where these writing style depicts the nature and the style of that particular age. With that note,